Right, so you're still here on the AM show, and as I indicated, we're talking about exam leakage and examination fraud. Well, the level of the examination fraud being experienced during the West African Senior School Certificate Examination in senior high schools in recent times is unprecedented, with virtually every school in Ghana, including top grade A schools, actively taking part. That's according to the former president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, Kwame Alovi. Now, in a detailed 6-page article titled Unpacking the Fraud in Ghana's West African Senior School Certificate Exams, the Educationist says these acts, if unchecked, will destroy Ghana's education system. Many worry these examination leakages will eventually destroy the country's education system if unchecked. Now, joining us on phone is Anis Hafa, an educationist, and Angel Kabunu is the current NAGRAT president. We also have Kofi Asare, executive director, Africa Education Watch. And we'll start with Kofi Asare. Good morning to you, Kofi, and welcome to the AM show.
Hi, good morning.
All right. I know that you've been doing some work already as far as this exam leakage thing is concerned, but in this article, I don't know if you've seen the write-up by Kwame Alovi.
No, I haven't seen it, but I am quite conversant with the issues of dropout. The issues relating to leakages in the WASSCE, because we have a project specifically monitoring WASSCE from about 100 schools, and we've been working in these schools a month before WASSCE started. And we are still monitoring WASSCE in the schools. Apart from that, we are also monitoring WASSCE on various social media handles online to document the process of leakages, possible leakages, and then also feed the necessary information to law enforcement agencies to as much as possible act to prevent the serial leakage of question papers that we keep occasioning at WASSCE.
All right, so in this write-up, we've been discussing these issues for a while now. I mean, issues having to do with exam leakage, and you have been involved in it. You have been exposing some of these things, but this one goes a lot further. He describes a situation or a setup where essentially everybody is in on it, and we're talking about school heads, headmasters, we're talking about teachers, we're talking about invigilators, we're talking about the police, everybody else being in on this, and they're actually making money on the back of it. And he talks about the motivation for this happening, and that the schools actually, these school heads want to see their schools do well, and he says it's gotten to a point where the teachers really are not motivated to put in their role to ensure that the kids get what the students get what they're teaching, because they know that at the end of when it gets to exam, all they need to do is to buy the examination papers and the leaks, and that's it, and to get them passed. I was particularly shocked by the extent to which this thing goes. Is that what you've also found out in your in the work that you've been doing so far?
Well, let me first of all indicate that having discussions on WASSCE leakages, examination fraud, is quite uncomfortable in Ghana, because immediately you raise the issue, people politicize the issue. The position of government has always been the position of WAEC. WAEC will never admit that there's a leakage. Even if they come close to admitting it, they want to say it wasn't a leakage, but then it was circulated. They use circulated on social media. And WAEC will always tell you that, when they were about to write the paper, 30 minutes prior to writing the paper, when the question pack was opened, someone took shots of it and circulated it on social media. So it becomes very, very difficult to discuss the challenge when government in itself does not appreciate the enormity. Okay, appreciating the issue is one, but the enormity of the issue is one. That's why it becomes very, very difficult. If after this discussion, you will talk to someone from the Ministry of Education, the person will come and say, no, it's not true. Then it takes us back to where we started. So it is an uncomfortable discussion, but definitely as civil society organizations interested in influencing policy for change, positive change, for quality improvement and credibility, and credibility in our education system, we will never stop talking about this. And secondly, we are not blaming any agency in talking about this. We are blaming the system and holding those responsible to ensuring that the system works accountable and compelling them or calling on them to fix the issues. Because all Ghana benefits if we have a credible and quality assessment system. That is the preamble. It is true. WAEC's own press statement, the last press statement WAEC issued about 3 weeks ago, in that press statement, they alluded to the fact, and I'm happy about that they found 10 schools where teachers who are internal invigilators connive with students to cheat. They take their phones in the examination hall. They assist them. There's always a group on standby. There's a platform called Invigilators WhatsApp group. Immediately the questions are ready, they solve it, put them on the WhatsApp groups. Students have phones. They take it to the examination hall. They copy from their phones. And then the invigilators are protecting the students to copy. The students have paid. And so the invigilators are under contract to ensure that they are able to copy. Policemen are there. Everybody watches. WAEC external officers, they are there, but they did nothing. In WAEC's own statement, they said that they had interdicted or suspended 10 of their officials in these schools. Now, this scenario I just explained to you, per WAEC's own letter, is what we are seeing playing out in at least 60 senior high schools that we are monitoring. 60. We are monitoring only 100. So about 60% of the schools we are monitoring have this scenario. And it started a month before the examination, when monies were being collected by teachers. Headmasters, assistant headmasters are key in this. They collect money between 200 and 300 cedis from the students. They use the money to go and buy the questions. I'll come to where they buy the questions from. Buy the questions. And then at the midnight before each paper, between 10 and 11:30 p.m., the questions arrive. They are solved. They are put on invigilators' WhatsApp platforms, what most schools call them, and then the students are able to have access to the answers at that time. In cases where the questions arrive late at dawn, around 4 a.m., or around 5 a.m. sometimes, you find that because students may have gotten the questions and answers late, they have a way of taking their phones to the class and to the examination hall, and then they are helped by the invigilators to copy. And don't forget that these invigilators platforms are always on standby to solve the questions and quickly deploy them on the platforms. This has been the trend since this year's WASSCE started. Now, let me tell you how we have paid for the questions. We are trying to ascertain the source of the leak, subscribe to about, and we pay between 30 Ghana cedis per paper and then 100 Ghana cedis. The highest 100 Ghana cedis was for, I think, elective maths, which was a leak. It came around before 11 p.m. It was out. And then I think another paper. All the rest, we've been getting it at 30 Ghana cedis.
Why? Kofi, so what accounts for some being sold for 30 and others being sold for 100?
Oh, I won't mention any platform here because I'll popularize them. But some.
No, but I'm saying, on what basis?
Different companies.
On what basis would they price one at 30 and the other at 100?
There are about 18 different platforms on Telegram where these questions are sold. So they are competing against themselves. So in order to skim through the market, some of them reduce their prices. So it's a competitive strategy. About 18 different companies selling the same product. And sales go on between 10 p.m. and if you like 4 or 5 a.m. So if you don't reduce your price, you won't get more customers. And on some of these platforms, there are about 120,000 subscribers. So it's business. It's about business. They are all advertising on these platforms, and then they are selling them. When you pay the money, then they move you onto their VIP platform. So it's about competition. And since the exam started, for the subjects that we are monitoring, with the exception of biology, all the questions that we received indeed appeared. So after we received the fifth question, and then also another question, which is not WASSCE paper, but it's actually NAPTEX paper. So I think NAPTEX English. Then we decided that it is time for us to talk to the security agencies. That's when we made a formal complaint to the Director General of CID, which the case is now being investigated by Cybercrime Unit. We have given them the evidence that they need to be able to trace the source of the leaks. Now, in all the discussions, let's note one thing. What is important to us is not how the monies are collected. What is important to us is not how invigilators support students to take their phones in and shepherd them to copy answers on platforms. What is important to us is the time and the source of the leakage. The time of the leakage is not in the examination room when the question paper is opened, when the question packs are opened before everyone there, including students and invigilators. No. It is not the time that the key to the question sack is opened in the school 30 or 45 minutes to the start of examination. That's around 7 a.m. or 7:30 a.m. No. The questions are sold the night before the paper, and we have provided the evidence of the time we received all these questions to the Director General, to CID. It will help us to trace the source, because immediately we begin buying into WASSCE theory or WASSCE explanation that the questions get circulated on social media when they are in the examination room. Immediately we begin to toe that line and accept that as gospel or hook, line, and sinker. We will never solve this problem. And we have never solved this problem, which has been there since 2012, 2013, because we have always been listening to that rendition.
All right.
And that's why I feel very sad anytime I hear other stakeholders, including the Ministry of Education spokesperson, talking about WASSCE saying there was no leakage. Okay. So that is the challenge we have on our hands. And that is a challenge that can be surmounted and confronted if only we are honest to admit the enormity of the challenge.
Kofi, so you talk about this as starting from 2012, but we all know, I mean, I'm aware that exam leakages have been with us for decades. Let me bring in Angel Kavonu, who's the current NAGRA president. Good morning to you, Mr. Kavonu. So I'm sure you'd have come across this write-up put out by your someone who also used to be, Kwame Alovi, who used to be the NAGRA president, be in this particular position. What do you make of what he has said and what Kofi Asare is also saying as far as exam leakages are concerned?
Well, the situation is very embarrassing, and it compromises the integrity of our exams and puts the future of our students, as far as their international relevance, in jeopardy. The unfortunate thing is that we have been at it for several years, and it looks like the institution, the West Africa Examination Council, Ghana, does not have the capacity to reinvent itself or to make amends so as to take this thing out. Before I go on, let me just make some revelation, which is to almost everybody, to you, that other parallel exams are written in this country, foreign exams. Some conducted on behalf of those foreign bodies by some embassies in those countries. We have foreign students who take foreign school certificate exams in this country. Never have we ever heard that any of these papers have leaked or have leaked at the level, the embarrassing level that we find ourselves in now. So what is the problem with WASSCE? Last year, even the names and telephone numbers of examiners was in the public domain. And yet, the West Africa Examination Council just does a face-saving pretense of finding solutions, and that is all. So for me, the fundamental problem is that the institution conducting the exam itself has a fundamental problem of incapability of handling the examinations at this level where technology is right. That is where the fundamental problem is. And as a nation, we ought to begin questioning ourselves that we should maintain our relationship with WASSCE the way we have it as of today. Look, you get reports from schools, because one thing is that if the apport or the questions are available, it will be difficult to prevent students from attempting to access it. So the solution will be to make it unavailable. Then the student do not have a choice than to go present himself and write the exam based on his or her ability. But right now, the exam, the leaked questions are available. And they can only be available from the source, which is the West Africa Examination Council. That is where we should all turn our attention to. But you see, by the 8th of this month, that is by the close of those weeks, the exams will be over. All of us will keep quiet and we'll all go to sleep. Next year, the situation rests its head again and we'll come back talking the same way we are talking. WASSCE should be taken on by everybody.
Now, Mr. Kabonu, in all of this, we've had the names of the invigilators mentioned. We've had teachers mentioned. And these teachers are also members of your association, the National Association of Graduate Teachers. So what is it that NAGRAT itself is doing, or why is it that NAGRAT appears to be looking on while all of this is going on, involving its own members?
In the first place, we have stated that anyone found culpable, be you a down or not, will be dealt with according to law without favor. And that we will not come to the aid of any member found to have engaged him or herself in examination malpractice. So that's the first thing. Number two, we have finished a nationwide regional conferences. And everywhere I went, I told the teachers one thing, that you are not engaged in the West Africa examination as a result of compulsion. You participate in the exam at your own whims and caprices. Therefore, if you fail to abide by the rules and regulations stated to ensure the sanctity and purity of the exam, you have yourself to blame. So, if any teacher becomes errant and goes on his or her way to engage in anything untoward, I expect the state apparatus to seek that teacher and deal with that teacher according to law. That is the position of the union.
No, but yes, that's a position of the union. Do you also feel that your members are under pressure, and that's why this is also happening, because they're supposed to deliver results? If your students don't do too well, it suggests that you, the teacher, hasn't done so well in teaching them.
I don't think so. Teaching started in this country several 100 years ago. Students have been writing exams and they have been passing and they have been failing. A lot of very illustrious Ghanaians have been produced by these teachers in very prestigious institutions. It is not today that because somebody fails, that is why the teacher should go and engage in examination malpractice. The issue is that you don't go and violate the law to attempt to achieve a positive result. That is still an infraction of the law.
That's a good one.
So attempting to cut corners and violate the law is a no-go area. And there is no justification anyone can give whatsoever that act. And it is not even an option that ought to be considered by anybody.
All right, you say that you've told your members and you've gotten them to appreciate that if any of them is found culpable, the law should deal with them. Do you get the sense that the law is interested and willing to deal with these people?
That is in the ambit of the law and those who administer and execute the law. I don't have the capacity to administer and execute the law, nor does the association have the capacity to administer and execute the law. The law is reposed in the bosom of certain people constitutionally and certain people mandated by law to execute and administer. If they fail to do their duty, then we will have to hold them responsible.
I'm bringing it up because in Kwame Alobi's write-up, he says that there's the understanding that free SHS, the teachers, the headmasters, everybody else has come to the understanding that free SHS must succeed at all costs. And so let's give the results or produce the results if this is happening. And it's going to mean that we're going to get a lot more people failing. It will mean that it's a failure of the free SHS system. And so at all costs, let's get them to succeed, whether through fair or foul means.
Well, from my personal point of view as an educationist, I don't mean the success of an education policy by the passing or failure of an examination. I think it is something bigger than that. If there are people who have this agenda, then I think they ought to do the right thing by providing the resources, the teaching materials, motivating teachers to do good work. However, whatever the objective is, whatever the fundamental reason that gives rise to those, and indeed, please, let us also quickly state that the leakage of questions did not begin with the free teachers.
Yes.
The leakage of questions started far before free teachers. From where I sit, it is an untoward and unacceptable behavior of unscrupulous people who have the desire to get rich quick through foul means. And the law ought to find strategies in ensuring that they are dealt with.
All right, so yes, there are those who want to get rich quick through fair or foul means, but then they also meet some parents who are eager to get their kids advanced through fair or foul means, and they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, those parents then don't even know the ultimate objective of education, because this certification is absolutely different from the acquisition of education. They are two very different things, because look, I have known a lot of people with very fine certificates that can decorate a saloon and all that, but when you put them to strict tests of performance, you realize that they are far behind. So certification is absolutely different and totally different from education. If any parent is willing to pay money to buy the performance or success of his or her child, then that parent itself is a failure. That parent itself is a monumental failure. So for me, I don't see how you would have paid so much fees. And because for a parent to even buy those questions, it's an admission that my child is not capable. So that should ask you a question: why do I pay so much fee for me to realize at the end of the day that my child is incapable? So everybody, why are we not arresting those parents? Why are we not arresting those teachers? Why are we not arresting the managers of those websites that do the distribution and so on and so forth?
Let me bring in Kofi Asare again. Kofi, do you get the sense that, or why is it so difficult to, or why are we not able to find out the source of these leakages and get the people involved?
All right. Yes, I understand. And I have a fair understanding of why it is not easy to apprehend those responsible. But let me quickly say this, that yes, question leakages have been with us since we were students. Yes. But what we are discussing is not question leakages. We are talking about a commercialized question leakage industry. It's a fully blown industry with over 100,000 subscribers on platform where questions are sold. And we have moved from those days, APO being an extreme issue, being an exception, to a situation where APO is now a norm. In fact, it is news if you don't have questions forehand. That is where we've moved. We've moved to a situation where it is rare for a senior high school 3 student not to have a mobile phone. When students get to Form 3, they begin worrying their parents' mobile phones. And I have experienced some this year and last year. And it's basically because they need to plug onto the social media handles where the questions are sold, answers are circulated. So you see, we've moved from the point where APO was, if you like, deviant behavior. It was an exception to a point in our society where it has now become the norm. And so let's look at it from that angle, not just the issue of whether there was a port 20 years back. Of course, there was. But what we're talking about now is that now a norm. And such a norm will destroy the integrity of our assessment system.
All right.
Now, let me go to the issue
would you,
of
before then, would you say then that it has to do with the proliferation of social media and mobile phones and technology?
Of course. In our report of last year, we indicate that WASSCE has been overtaken by technology. So what was leaking at dawn or at midnight and could only get to schools around Accra is now getting to as far as to move within a minute because of the availability of a platform called WhatsApp. And also what could have been sold to a few people in person is now being sold on a platform called Telegram, which can have over 1 million subscribers and still not be able to detect because it doesn't have a static IP address. And I'm coming to the issue of why it's difficult to apprehend the SMS. It doesn't have a static IP address. It doesn't run on a mobile phone, a SIM. So my Telegram account is not linked to my phone. It's actually linked to a laptop. So you don't need a SIM number to have Telegram. It makes it very difficult or close to impossible to detect a Telegram account or its source. We are aware of that. But it is not impossible to apprehend those who are behind this because we must ascertain where the questions came from. The hunt should not be necessarily focusing on those who are selling the questions. That hunt is not a sustainable end to the problem. The hunt must be geared towards or directed towards those who got the questions from WASSCE's custody, and then leak them onto this social media platforms where they are being sold. If the questions did not leak from WASSCE's custody, either from the point where they were being printed, either from the point where they were being set, or either from the point where they were kept in the depots until they left the depot an hour or an hour and a half before examination that morning. If you are not able to detect where along these 3 vantage points in the chain that questions leaked from that bag, which is security proof, we are told, and for which only 2 people have access to the keys, a GNS official and then a WASSCE official. If we are not able to determine where the questions are leaking from, you will be engaging in a wild goose chase if we focus overly on the platforms where they are selling them, because they are not the ones who go and steal the questions from WASSCE. Now, let me quickly say that I disagree with Mr. Alovi when he says, according to you, that he suspects that the free senior high school must succeed at all cost agenda could be attributed to this. I disagree with him because after speaking to one of the key people behind this Telegram pages, okay, I got the impression that most of these people, most of these platforms started operating in 2013 at the commercial level, commercialized question selling. As far back as 2013, they were selling questions on various social media platforms, including Imo and then Telegram, and then there was another one, I've forgotten the name, but they were selling questions, okay? And they used to be called WAEC Guru Boys. We have had interviews with some of them, so I know what I'm talking about. They used to be called WAEC Guru Boys. So it is not an issue that started in 2017 for us to say that it coincided with Free Senior High School. The only matter is that it so happened that an organization called African Education Watch decided to start the monitoring of WASSCE last year. So it is appeared as if it started last year when the first batch of Free Senior High School students were writing WASSCE. No. As far back as 2013, these platforms were in full swing. And WAEC, one of the external assessment reports of WAEC, it was indicated that the issue of examination fraud has assumed the portion where WAEC alone cannot deal with, because it has become very dangerous with huge amounts of money involved. This is not only Ghana. On the platform that we buy our questions, for which, as I speak to you, the social studies questions for today were allegedly, provided. This is done. It is not only for Ghana. It is mainly for Ghana, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. So it gives you an idea about how enormous the issue is. And it also gives you an idea of the fact that it is unconscionable for me to believe that it has a correlation with Free Senior High School. It may have a correlation with the fact that some head teachers are very, very, very eager at all costs to buy questions, influence invigilators, and ensure that their students pass. Maybe because the GES now has key performance indicators for head teachers, and they have minimum thresholds, benchmark that they have to meet in terms of pass rates for key subjects in these KPIs. So if, as and when senior high school heads are able to meet these KPIs, they are rewarded. That is why every head teacher will be happy to see their students cross those thresholds and then make good grades and then make it high on the list. But that is not to say that the only way to get your students to pass and pass well and meet your KPIs as a headmaster is to engage in examination fraud, collect students' money, and then use it to go and buy questions, get your teachers and invigilators to answer them for them, and then pay external examiners so that you compromise them. That is not how to meet those KPIs. So I would say
that's a very easy way out.
Using bad means to achieve KPIs. No, but that's what in WAEC's own press they released. They mentioned that there is collusion. What's the meaning of collusion? There's collusion between those who are supposed to supervise the examination and ensure that it is one that has integrity, then there's no cheating, and there's no cheating. Those people have rather been compromised. And indeed, they've not just been compromised, but they are the ones who are actually collecting the money. So there is no invigilation going on in some of the schools, because the one who's supposed to ensure that the system is fair is the one who has not just been compromised, but actually has led in the initiative to collect money and compromise on themselves. That's how serious the issue is. So some bad headmasters, academic headmasters and teachers are perpetrating this fraud on the system. But I think that it has no correlation with Free Senior High School. Okay. And the more we keep raising that issue, we actually create a bigger inertia. And we continue to push the Ministry of Education and stakeholders who are supposed to act to stop this issue. We push them away from admitting its existence or the enormity of the issue, because it becomes politics. And if it becomes politics, you expect that political authority decision makers will deny what is the obvious, because they know that their opponents are going to take advantage of that and score cheap political points.
And will become defensive.
Into this is cheap, and we shouldn't accommodate that.
Okay.
Other than that, the problem will remain, it will never be solved, and we'll be fuming every day after WASSCE, and nothing will change.
You said something. You talked about the social studies paper. You're saying that from what you're getting.
It's arrived at done. From where we have paid, we normally get all the questions are done. I'm saying with the exception of biology, every question we have paid, we received them. The latest one that came around 4 a.m. was the physics paper that eventually was frustrated. and the business management. That one came late. It was so late. It came around for all come before midnight. This social science and social studies one is sitting before us on our platform. Look, we have a platform where immediately we mobilize the questions. It's our own strong room. We put it there. One of your journalists and multimedia is on the platform. We have a police officer on everybody. You have a lawyer on the platform. So everybody is seeing, as we mobilize the questions from about 18 platforms, we put it on our platform as evidence of the time that we received this question from this platform and this platform. And we have reported the matter to the Ghana General CID. We will follow that last week Friday, and we are told that the case has been referred to cybercrime, and they are working on it. So we can only hope that the action is expedited. But apart from law enforcement, my brother, we need to agree that we need to change the system that WAEC is operating on. The first thing is that WAEC as an agency has no regulator. If WAEC had the regulator, it wouldn't have been for WAEC to admit that my questions leaked. No. It would have been for the regulator to say or to respond to a petition from concerned Ghanaians or interested groups like Education Watch that per your submission to us, we can determine that the questions really leaked and that the examination conducted by WAEC on this day did not meet the standards of international assessments. That agency does not exist in Ghana. We have same for NCA. If the standard of MTN or Vodafone services fall below par, it is not MTN that will come and say that it's good. NCA is the one that will come and then make a pronouncement and then sanction appropriately. We don't have that institution in Ghana. So every day, WAEC is the referee, the coach, and the player. And when WAEC speaks, it is likely, most likely, 99%, that the Ministry of Education will say what WAEC is saying is not leak. The second thing is that we need to begin to move away from the assessment methods, this stressful test-based assessment methods. This high-stakes assessment methods creates the demand for questions. If there's no demand for them, there won't be any supply. So if we are not advanced enough to adapt technologies that can ensure that there's a watertight transmission of question system, and from the printing to the time the question gets to the desk of the students, then as an option, as a country, we should begin to look at how to explore other methods of assessing students where students will be given the questions a day before the paper. Because you know that you are assessing them based on some applied thinking and not recalling of what they have learned. So you have the question, but it will not make a difference because it will only help you to apply your knowledge in answering the questions. That is what I think we should be discussing now. Because if you go to most of our universities, some of the questions are given to you ahead of the examination. But it is not a problem. It is because the way they are assessing you makes your access to the question useless. Because they are not asking you to come and recall what you have learned. They are not coming to do true and poor, but they are coming to apply based on your understanding of the instruction. So the assessment item is actually changed from a test-based one, high-stakes one, to one that is more applied.
Right. If we
get to that point, if you have WASSCE question a day before the examination, it will be useless because the students, the assessment system is designed that the students should have it anyway. If there is no supply, so there won't be any demand. You remember Sales law in economics, that supply will create its own demand. So in the same way, Christian is saying that demand will create its own supply. If we extinguish the demand, we make APO valueless, then there won't be any market. Then there won't be any leakage. Then we can have some credible system. So we are developing a policy brief on this. We will share it in 2 weeks' time when we are launching our WASSCE report. And we will be happy that the government will give it attention. But denying that APO exists, denying that APO is not the norm, would be an exercise in futility because we are just burying our heads, in the sand. It's a reality we must confront and resolve it before our certificates become useless internationally.
Yes, and we're having this conversation because, yes, we don't want a situation where the certificates become useless. And internationally, you would have applied to a university or an educational institution outside of the country, and then they're telling you that they don't recognize the certificate. But beyond that, we're also risking a situation where we're pushing people through based on false certificates or fake certificates, essentially. So you have somebody who advances to do medicine and to do all other, some other careers or professions. And it turns out that they really don't have the basics that's needed. And that's a very serious situation for the entire country, Mr. Kabanu. Hello, Mr. Kabanu. All right, you seem to have lost Mr. Kabanu on that line there. But yes, it's something that we're having to live with and would have to address. Thank you very much, Kofi Asare. And we'll be looking forward to that report that you say you have coming out in a couple of weeks. But are you going to give us any sneak peek into what the WASSCE report's saying? All right, we also appear to have lost Kofi Asare, but Enimwa is with me here in the studio. And yes, Enimwa, we're having this conversation because this is a very serious situation.
It's very scary.
And we risk a situation where we have people who are supposed to have gone through education, have been educated, and yet they really don't have that much. I have Kofi Asare. So Kofi Asare asking if you're prepared to give us a sneak peek into that WASSCE report that you have coming out in a couple of weeks.
Well, it's not anything too different from what we've been discussing, except that there are various dimensions and angles to the issue, because we started monitoring 1 month before the first paper. So we have, foreknowledge of how schools mobilize before the questions, before WASSCE starts, how the collection of money is done in the schools 1 month before the first paper. We have, because we have monitors in the schools, most of our monitors are even invigilators. We have more evidences, interviews we've conducted with students, with invigilators, before examination, after examination. We have about 80 monitors. So we have a lot of information on the ground to give us an idea about how organized this business is. And the potential it has to crumble our external assessment system if we continue playing the ostrich that we play because of the fear of responsibility. I also want to also indicate that we're also going to take Ghanaians through the systems, how we buy the questions, the processes, and then the platforms which these questions are sold. Because at that time, it won't be an issue to actually mention names. We'll open the live platforms and we'll show you how the questions are sold, how they have moved from snapshots to now writing the questions with their own handwriting to beat our detection. To beat our suspicion. And then how they even go ahead to mix the questions, where question 1 will now appear as question 3, question 2 will be question 4, so that if you look at it at the face value, you say, well, this is not a leak. They've developed so many other, approaches to outwit detection. And they know that Africa Education Watch is on the platform. So every 2 days, they will say, Education Watch is here, be careful. So they are aware that what they are doing is not good. They are aware that there are people monitoring them because they can see that there are numbers that they cannot vouch for, their source. But then the urge to make profits, the business drive is supreme. So, they don't care. Yeah. So we will see how, and even how students mobilize funds ahead of examination. Ahead of examination, Form 3 student mobilize funds and all that. The organization of how schools mobilize invigilators onto platforms, WhatsApp platforms, pay them to be solving questions. And even if the questions do not leak, how the questions are solved when the examination session is ongoing, and then actually deployed onto platforms. When the paper does not leak and it comes later, immediately they will solve them, and then they find a way to push it to the students. Communication between invigilators and students, we have lots of them documented, reaction of students after examination, lots of interviews, lots of WhatsApp chats and all that. Just to give an idea about how organized this thing is, and the need for us to confront it, all right, instead of pretending it is a minor or a trivial issue. It is a norm and never an exception. And that's why we must put all hands on deck in confronting this canker.
All right. Thank you very much, Kofi Asare. He is Executive Director of Africa Education Watch, and they've done extensive work on exam leakages. As is indicated, they've been doing this, monitoring this for years now. But as I was telling you, it's quite worrying because the implications for our education sector is quite grievous.
I mean, even Israel, apart from the leakages and all of that, we have an education sector that's churning out students who specialize in chew and pour, you know. So we're not really churning out students who are thinking, who are innovative, who are able to problem solve, who, you know, are critically thinking and all of that. And then it's like we're taking away the chew and pour as well, because now we're feeding them with the exam paper, so we're actually not requiring them to learn. But it's very nuanced, you know, very sad, very unfortunate, because it's also a credibility issue, isn't it? If you're trying to get into a university outside of Ghana, you know, and your WASSCE results, as soon as they see the country, you know, they're like, we don't know if this is legit. You know, you can imagine what that is, the ramifications for the students who are not cheating, and what this does to our credibility. So
it's very typical, you know, relating it to the COVID certification.
Yeah.
That another country will say, okay, you have a COVID vaccination card, but we're not too sure if it actually means
that you got vaccinated. Exactly.
So same way, you have a WASSCE certificate,
but it doesn't mean
we're not sure whether it actually means that you've been educated.
Exactly. You know what I'm interested in, though? I want to know how parents feel about this. So, or how our listeners as well, you know, how students feel about this. Why don't we open the phone lines and then share your thoughts with us on these leakages that seem to be happening every year, especially this year. If your kids are writing WASSCE as well, how do you feel about it? How does it make you feel that the potential credibility of, you know, this certificate is being threatened by people who are determined to make money or just, you know, meet their KPI? So for whatever reason that people are doing that, the numbers are on the screen. Please call us. Tell us what you think. We'd love to hear from you. If you're worried about this or concerned about this in any way, 0302-211-691 or 0302-211-692.
All right, so you just give us a call. Let's get to hear what you have to say about the conversation we're having this morning. If you happen to have experienced, if you have been experienced or encountered any of this, you can let us know. We have Echo calling from Siani. Hello, Echo.
Israel, good morning to you and your viewers.
Good morning to you.
As you mentioned, I'm a teacher in one of the secondary schools. I wouldn't like to mention the name in the Ahafo region.
All right.
Seriously speaking, we have accepted exam as a norm as a society. Why am I saying this? Both teachers, invigilators, parents, they have accepted this. And if taking the exam questions now is not a problem. It has become obsolete. Now in schools, we have teachers taking the exam script. And you can go and even sit, they write it on board for them to copy, or they go and answer these questions and supply them with photocopies to the students in the exam halls to copy. So it's not something, again, that is the WAEC problem. It's a whole societal problem that parents, teachers, invigilators, everyone in where we have found ourselves, I'm telling you that it is problematic.
What do you think is the motivation, Echo?
The motivations, I will say, you see, currently I would say that the problem has been accentuated within my period. So I will speak for within my period. The problem has been accentuated by the free SHS policy. Teachers, the headmasters especially, they fear to go and answer, or let's say take responsibility. You are a headmaster who has been given students with very low grades, and you are supposed to let all of these students pass like a crook. If I were a headmaster, if I'm confronted with this and the leader calls me to come and answer questions, I will tell you these were the students I got, and so these are the results I will get them. It is not anything out of the blue that we will have people passing and some of them failing. But for now, headmasters fail to speak even when they are supposed to accept the fact that this is the problem and we must address it as such.
All right. Thank you very much, Echo. We have
Ray from Bono region. Hello, Ray. Good morning.
Thank you.
Hello, Ray.
Yeah, good morning.
Hi, good morning. So what are your thoughts on this?
Okay. Actually, I'm a teacher. I teach in one of the secondary schools. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening to you, Ray.
Yeah, I teach in one of the secondary schools in the Bono region. And this issue and discussion, it's nothing new. In fact, it's a syndicated destiny. It's a syndicate that is operating. Now, if you want to look at the issue, you must first start it from the point of view of the Ghana Education Service. There is pressure on head teachers or headmasters from the Ghana Education Service to deliver about 2 weeks to the examination. Headmasters were forced to sign some key performance contracts. And within this key performance contract, certain rate has been given to the head. Now, if you are ahead and you don't deliver, your job will be on the line. So whether the head likes it or not, he or she is forced to allow some of these practices